I have a few practice tips for Etude number 4 from Anthony Cirone's Portraits in Rhythm. At the very beginning, at the tempo, which is dotted quarter equals 58, I like to use a triple bass on the roll instead of a duple bass, so you get a little more intensity on the fortissimo roll, as opposed to and a little later on in the line, you have a decrescendo. And there I actually like to use the duple-based roll to help goose the crescendo, to help emphasize the decrescendo. So I do the first part of the roll triple-based and then taper off with duple. Here's what it sounds like. Gives it a nice decrescendo. In the second line, you have a lot of consecutive flams. So I like to keep them all in the same hand, which is generally a concert style approach to playing flams. In rudimental style, we'd alternate flams. Keep them on the same hand for this, and try to keep the quality of the flam the same, even when you're changing the dynamic levels. So here's how this sounds with a flam on one hand. Moving on a little further, when you get down to the seventh line, we have a drop to pianissimo, and there's of course a decrescendo a couple measures before, and I really like to use the drum to emphasize that decrescendo, and when I mean use the drum, move a little bit into the middle, and then when you start the seventh line down, you're closer to the edge, and then you stay there for a while until several lines later, it would be actually the fourth line from the bottom, you have a crescendo. Here's a little bit what that sounds like, starting a couple measures before the seventh line down. So there you kind of hear I moved in on the decrescendo. The third line from the bottom has a grace note that's a little bit tricky, that 4-note grace note. It's essentially like a 5-stroke roll with the terminating note. And one of the things you want to do is make sure that you keep the integrity of the pulse, of the time, consistent and steady when you're putting these grace notes in. And you also want to be careful dynamically. It's real easy to want to accent that 5-stroke, where the accented roll is actually on the 3rd note in that measure. So you want to not goose the first grace note too much, save a little power in reserve for that 3rd beat, and the same in the second half of the measure. I like to start the roll with my left hand coming out of the first measure, and I'll also start both of the press rolls with my left hand. So here's how that sounds. And then moving to the very last line, that's a little tricky. There's a lot of notes there. It's a very dense couple measures. And to keep track, I think 1 E enda, 2 E enda, 3 E enda, as I'm playing those 30-second notes. So I hope a few of these tips have helped you playing this. This is a fun Etude number 4 out of Anthony Cirone's Portraits in Rhythm. And good luck with your practice.